Marriage proposal and Baruch's conditions. Avram did not want to rush matters. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak had advised him to go carefully. Meanwhile, the latter took the opportunity of sounding out Baruch on the subject of the proposed match, and preparing the way for Avram to discuss this vital matter with him. Baruch proved less difficult than he feared, and in fact agreed without hesitation to Avram's proposition, this to be conditional only upon his being allowed to live according to the way he had marked out for himself. Baruch wanted to make it quite clear to Avram that he could only become his son-in-law if he, and of course his daughter Rivka, accepted the following conditions. Baruch asked for no dowry as such, but he wanted Avram to have a separate house built for him and Rivka. The reason being that he wanted this house to be a guest house for poor wayfarers, particularly for those mystics who were at that time roaming the country in their sacred task of helping their poor, downtrodden, and despairing fellow Jews. Baruch had met many mystics in the course of his wanderings. As we know, Baruch mostly made his home in the Beis HaMedrash, wherever he found himself, and it was to the Beis HaMedrash that the mystics also used to make their way, for they had no money to pay for their lodgings. These mystics fell, so to speak, between the chairs, and there was no one who interested himself to see to their comfort or needs. They did not wish to ask for charity, so they did not even have as much as the poor who stood at the door of the Beis HaMedrash to rouse the sympathy of the generous-hearted. On the other hand, because they mostly traveled about like ordinary poor workers, their identities were unknown, and the families who were always ready to be hosts to distinguished people overlooked these mystics and failed to offer them hospitality. And so it was a very hard life that these mystics led, and Baruch dreamed of the time when he might be in a position to ease their lot by offering them a proper bed to sleep in instead of the hard bench in the Beis HaMedrash, as well as a good meal, instead of the scanty bits of food they managed to take along with them on their wanderings. Obviously, Baruch could not put his dream into practice until he married, and remembering the saying that a woman generally looks ill upon visitors, he meant to be forewarned. This is why he was so insistent upon Avram accepting the conditions he put to him. Avram was quick to assure Baruch that he need not worry, as, knowing his daughter's kind heart, he could promise him even before he asked her that she would be willing and happy to agree that their home should be an ever-open door to all those whom Baruch wished to invite. Now that Avraham and Baruch found themselves in absolute agreement with each other, Baruch expressed his willingness and readiness to become engaged as soon as it could be arranged, and with this happy news, Avram departed. Before the actual engagement between Baruch and Rivka took place, Baruch's sister and aunt made a trip to Liozna to meet his prospective bride, and at the same time to help arrange the engagement. Baruch had confided in them and told them that one of the reasons he was anxious to marry Avram's daughter was because he was a great admirer of Avram, particularly because he earned his living by the toil of his hands as a gardener. Baruch himself had worked for Avram and had learned from him the art of gardening. Now Baruch wanted very much to have a garden of his own to earn his living thereby after he got married. Baruch's aunt mentioned this to Avram. The latter took them to the plot of land a few miles outside Liozna, where he proposed to have a house built for Baruch and his bride. There was sufficient land there also for growing garden produce. Baruch's sister and aunt were very satisfied, especially as Rivka had made a favorable impression on them. A few weeks later, Avram and his daughter Rivka came to Vitebsk, where the engagement took place amidst rejoicing. As had been agreed, Baruch was to remain in Vitebsk for yet another year of study before he settled down to married life. During this year, Baruch continued along his old line of working a few hours each day and studying during the remainder of the time. No work was too hard or lowly for him. Often he acted as a carter, and this was indeed heavy going.